found my whisk. So hi, my name is JY, and when I started cooking a few years ago, the one thing that intimidated me the most was trying to make a pie pastry crust from scratch. So this recipe comes from one of my favorite bloggers, authors, Deb Perelman from Smitten Kitchen, and she also incorporates tips from my other favorite pastry wizard, Stella Parks. So to me, this recipe is pretty much, you know, as perfect as it could be. I wanted to use it today to show you how to make galettes, which I think is super easy and what I found from cooking a few dinners, very good crowd pleaser. And it doesn't matter if you're in a hurry and your dough is a weird shape, like it ultimately ends up looking nice anyway. So let me show you what it involves. So we need 2 cups of flour, which is 260 grams. So I've got that in a bowl for you. You need 3/4 teaspoon of fine sea or table salt. So this is 1 teaspoon, so I'll do 3/4 of it. So it's in the bowl. And then the recipe also suggests putting in sugar, but I find if you don't even put in sugar, it's totally fine. You can use it as a savory galette base as well as a sweet galette base. Yeah, so it says whisk to combine your flour, sugar, and salt. The next thing you need is butter. I like to use West Gold butter for my pastry because it is the highest level of butter fat that I've been able to find in a reasonably priced baking butter. It holds at 83.6% fat, and all of the French cookbooks, the ones that I like Dominique Ansel, they suggest 84% butter fat is a good level to have, so this is my favorite. So we need 1 cup, which is 230 grams of cold unsalted butter. I've just whisked in the flour and the salt together. Now I'm going to put in, so what I have is 230 grams of cold unsalted butter. So I hate cutting butter into cubes, it's really annoying and you get butter all over your fingers, and I love butter, but it's still not the best, so I try to cut it on the butter wrapper, so at least you don't get butter all over your board as well and have to do some extra cleanup. So one key tip for pastry making is to keep everything really cold. So I run hot and I have warm hands, so I'm always just chucking stuff into the fridge if it's starting to feel a little bit melty, so I'm going to do that right now. Now that you have your cold cut butter, it doesn't matter if the cubes are messy or whatever, no issue at all. I think the key tip that I've learned in all of my pastry research, which I attribute to Stella Parks, is that you don't need to squash your butter and grind it and make it all pretty and tiny into your flour. Instead, you just want to chuck in the cubes of butter, you want to flatten them with your fingers and then leave it. So big pieces of butter create a lot of steam when they are in the oven, which means that it creates those amazing flaky bits of pastry. You want to have buttery flakiness, and this is how you do it. So, right, so that is all of your butter in the bowl in just kind of messy cubes. So what you want to do now is you take each cube of butter, yeah, you can see that, and well, I just like to cover mine in flour first, just because, like I said, my hands get warm, so this way they're slightly more protected from my laser hands. So what you want to do is, here is a tiny cube of butter, yes, yep, and you just literally just squash it in your fingers until it becomes kind of like that. Oh, and then cover it in flour, and then do that for all of the butter in your bowl. Get your little square of butter, and then you just kind of squash it into flat bits. That's it. And then cover it in flour, and see, that's it. And then do that for all of them. Let me show you what it looks like. Yep, as you can see, just like a bunch of bits of flour covered flat butter. Yep, I'm just going to chuck it back in the fridge because, again, laser hands. So we've got the dough with all the bits of flattened butter in it with flour on it. And what we do now is pour 120 grams, half a cup of very cold water into the mixture. So then you can use a flexible spatula to mix it around because it's going to be quite a wet, like it's a little bit of a wet dough. That's how it looks with the water in it. So once I've mixed the water into it a bit, then I'll just use my hands to make an actual dough. And the dough doesn't have to look perfect, so like a lot of times, you know, doughs look really uniform, but I find for this one it's totally fine if it's not uniform at all. So I've just mixed in the water a bit, and now what I'm going to do is just use my hands. Yep, so that's what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is just use my hands to make it into like a full dough, like a dough ball. So yeah, so it's already becoming one piece. So I don't have very good dough pastry skills, but all you need to do is really just get it into a ball. And it doesn't need to be even. So if you take a look, it's not even at all. Pastry wizards and chefs may comment and say that's terrible, which totally it probably is, but I find it still works, and it's nice and easy. So yeah, so that's it basically. Got it into a ball, and then I use a bench scraper. It's just plastic to kind of squash that into 4 pieces. Yeah. And then I like to just roll these into a ball themselves. And then I've just got some pre-cut cling wrap, and we'll wrap those and put them in the fridge for an hour to rest. So I did see it's quite nice to then just shape your balls into a round shape. You want them not to be too many cracks in it, because then when you roll it out, it'll be quite cracky. But I find once you put them in the Glad wrap, then you can kind of push it out to fit and make it a slightly nicer shape. Just because when you roll it out, you want it to be fairly circular, so I find it's easy to just do it now. And then it'll be easier when you do it later. Great. So I was definitely worried it was going to melt, so I have done this a little bit more haphazardly than normal. But you know what? Even so, it's going to end up well, I think. So yeah. So we got 4 little roundish kind of circular balls, and they go in the fridge for an hour to rest. Okay, so while the pastry base is resting, I like to then make the galette filling. So I love citrus, like I'm obsessed with citrus. So whatever citrus is around, or berries, strawberries. So this comes from Deb's other recipe, which is the fruit galette recipe. I'll link to it below, about the fruit filling. So all you need is a bit of, so she said 3.5 cups of berries, stone fruit or other fruit. I'm using pink grapefruit and an orange. And you need tapioca flour, some sugar, so I just use caster sugar, and a pinch of salt. So all you need to do is cut up your fruit into fairly small, I should stop doing that. So all you need to do is cut up your fruit into fairly small-ish kind of cubes, and then mix it with these, and then leave it for a while until your pie base is ready to roll out. So here is the pink grapefruit and orange, and I'm also doing blueberries because I'm making one for my mom, and she can't have pink grapefruit. So all you need to do is then put in, let's say, 1/2 to 1.5 tablespoons of tapioca flour, depending on how much pectin is eaten each of the fruits. And Deb has some more descriptions in her recipe, which I'll link to below. You can put in an amount of tapioca flour. Like, I'm pretty chill about it. I'll probably just chuck in an amount that looks kind of right. So this is like about half a tablespoon-ish, maybe a little bit. Half a tablespoon to 1 tablespoon. Put a pinch of salt in each one. Oh, just put it all over the table, so that was great. The salt table is appropriately seasoned. And then a bit of sugar. So it says 1/4 cup, 50 grams for each 3.5 cups of berries. So considering I have like 1.5 cup of, I'll put in not too much, maybe like 20 grams. Okay, and the blueberries probably a little bit less because they're a little bit sweeter. But I found the citrus you have to put a decent amount of sugar in, otherwise it does end up being like quite sour. Depending of course on taste, I do like a nice sour citrus as well. Great, so then just mix this together. So yeah, just mix together. You can put in whatever else you like. Sometimes I put in some honey. You can put in some herbs from the garden. Ooh, I should have put in some rosemary or whatnot. Anyway, so that looks fine. And then the blueberries as well. I might put in a little bit of citrus juice into my blueberries. Okay, great. So nice. There are bursts of the blueberries. There's a blueberry with a big spoon in it. Anyway, I'll probably take that out of the galette, but you never know. I'll just leave that for now until the pastry has rested. So once your pastry dough has been rested in the fridge for an hour, you want to take it out of the fridge and let it just kind of warm up for about 10 minutes. So that's just to make sure that when you roll it out, it doesn't crack all over the place. And yeah, so I've rested my dough now for about 10 minutes and I'm going to roll it out. Or throw it on the table, I guess, which also works. Okay, so I'm just going to flour on both sides so it doesn't stick to my pin, and also flour my pin as well so we have minimal sticking. Great. Alright, just roll this out into a mostly circular shape. That's the one we need. And I'll just turn it as I go to make sure that doesn't stick to the bench. So, finished. It's about this big. The thickness is, say, maybe like 2 or 3 millimeters thick. I mean, you don't want it super thick, but you don't want it super thin either. So something about that much should be fine. So what you've got is your pastry base is about this much. Yep. And then I will fill it with some of the fruit. Oh, actually, it would have been smarter if I had moved this to the baking tray, because then I don't have to move it later. So let me awkwardly do that. Yep, so if you can see that, I've just got a baking tray with some baking paper on it. Great. So this is how much filling there is in the galette. You just fold it over. So you can fold it this way, and fold it like this, and then just kind of fold it over as you go. So it ends up being, it's quite neat. By neat, I mean it's not neat at all, but it's not too bad. The way that you do it, see, you just fold it over as you go. Alright, I'll roll out now for the blueberry. Both of these. Yeah, they look pretty good. So what you do now is I just whisked an egg. Just trust me, it's an egg. And then you need some demerara sugar. So I like demerara sugar because it's delicious, and it also kind of sits separately from the pastry, so it gives you that kind of extra texture crunch. Okay, so now I've got my demerara sugar. Yep, so that's like the kind of thick sugar. Yeah, so I'm just going to sprinkle that on top of each. Alright, so this is how they look. And I will just chuck this in the oven for 30 minutes. Yep. Yep. Hey. So hungry. Alright, we good? Okay, grab this. In the oven. Okay. Let's check that out. Okay, it's pretty hot. Just put it down. And then I gotta rest it. You have to rest it for about 20 minutes or so, and then you can serve it. But it looks amazing. It smells really good too. Oh god. Okay, ready? Hot. Oh yes. Nice. Good.